Recording. Okay. Welcome everyone to session 2 of Connect Inspire Share. It's fantastic to be here with you. And we've got a lot of people coming in, which is great. So I'd like to start by giving the acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we all are today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging. I'd also like to note that I'm speaking to you from Boonwurrung land, and if you'd like to pop into chat the land you're joining us from, you are more than welcome. Okay, as we're doing that, people can pop in the land they're joining us from. I'd just like to introduce our session today, and it's titled Facilitating Intercultural Learning Through Story Circles. And today's session is facilitated by 2 colleagues of mine. I'm really happy to say. Hilary Dolan, who has a background in education and psychology. Hilary is interested in how developing intercultural competencies and academic literacies can promote a culture of inclusion. Hi, everybody. If you could just mute yourself. I'm getting someone's personal phone call at the moment in my earphones. Okay, and we have Dr. Ha Nguyen, who holds a PhD in Language and Literacy Education from the University of Melbourne and works as an academic skills advisor here at the university. She enjoys learning innovative practice and helping students to develop their academic, professional, interpersonal skills in their own ways and to engage with learning as a lifelong career. So the session today, Story Circles. It's a tried and tested approach to developing intercultural competencies through sharing and reflecting on personal experiences in a group setting. This session provides an overview of the key aspects essential to facilitating story circles. And together, led by Ha and Hilary, we'll reflect on shared experiences in a supportive environment and discuss how this approach could be applied in the educational and work settings to promote social cohesion and increase engagement. You'll be welcome to contribute your own knowledge, share and learn tips and strategies around the development of intercultural competencies and diversity inclusive practices. So it's my real pleasure to welcome Hilary and Ha to the floor. I'll let them set out what the schedule for the session is today. And without any further from me, I'll pass on to Hilary and Ha.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks everyone for being here for us. And as Steve introduced, I'm Ha, and I'm here with my colleague Hilary, and together we'll be delivering a session on how to facilitate intercultural learning in your students or academics that you work with through story circles. So our session today will be divided into 3 main parts. The first part will be the briefing for the activities that you'll be engaging with in breakout rooms, and then a big chunk will be the breakout rooms themselves. And after that, we call everyone back again in the main room, where we'll be doing a debriefing session, which is one of the key aspects of reflective learning, which the story circles represent. So I'll let Hilary start by having a small fun activity in the chat. I'll share my screen first. Just bear with me, Hilary, sorry.
Okay, hi everyone. Excuse me, a bit of a croaky voice. I just want to welcome you all, and myself and Ha would also like to position ourselves as like humble intercultural communication skills practitioners. So like you, we are very interested in this topic and on a learning journey. So I will emphasize that. Let's start with a nice warm-up. Please introduce yourself in the chat, maybe say, where you're coming from, and let us know on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being, I guess, not very many, and 5 being many, how many interactions with people from different cultural backgrounds you've had over the past, let's say, week. Okay, and yeah, let's just see what we come up with. And by culture, we're taking a very broad approach towards culture here. So it's not just nationality, it could be race, it could be, I guess, preferences, it could be neurological makeup, it could be lots of different ways of looking at culture here. Wow, the responses are just flying in. Thanks for being so responsive, everyone. Yeah, so some people are saying, 5. Shout out to Steve, you've had 5 with 20 or so interactions. Yeah. But gosh, everyone has put 5 and 4. Yeah. I'm not sure where I'd put myself, maybe a bit lower down, maybe 3. And I would also start thinking about, what was the quality of that interaction as well. So that's something I'm mindful of as well. Okay, we might go on to the next slide. So this session, as has already explained, is about facilitating intercultural learning. And our understanding of intercultural learning is that when we connect with someone from a different culture, it means that we learn from it and we change how we approach the world based off that interaction. So we're saying it's different to cross-cultural in that way. Yep. So this is what we're going to cover. So we'll talk briefly about, the value of it. We'll all have different thoughts around that. We're keen to get your perspectives. And then we'll take you through what is meant by story circles. What is this methodology? And how might we use it in education? So we've used it quite a bit this year, and we've been really thrilled with how it's gone. And but this is really knowledge sharing. So we're very keen to hear from you as well. And it'll be experiential as well. So you'll have a go. We're going to get you to have a go at being in a story circle, because I think it's all very well learning about the theory. Sometimes you've just got to experience something to fully understand it. So that's what we're going to be doing. Yes, I might pass it over to you.
Thanks, Hilary. That was a great introduction. So I'm starting with the why of why do we use story circles, why intercultural competencies matter in the context of what we're doing in our job. So intercultural competencies are attitudes, knowledge, and skills that help people to communicate and collaborate across difference. And not only do they help with improving study collaboration and work collaboration, they also improve human interactions across difference, whether within a society or across borders. And I think these skills are particularly important for multicultural, multilingual societies such as Australia. So our academic advising work is closely related to all these skills, attitudes, and areas of knowledge, which are important for not just for international students, but for all students and staff for that matter, to develop, to study, communicate, and work well together. I'm going to play this short video here. It's only a 2-minute video, but I think it introduces the story circles method really, really well. So I'll stop sharing and share again to make sure that I share my system sound.
In a world that is increasingly connected, we meet and interact in our daily life with different cultures. Think about a person who does a great job connecting with different people. Maybe this is a neighbour, a family member, a colleague, a famous person. What is it about that person that helps them connect so well with persons of different ages, genders, and religions?
Chances are they have certain skills and attitudes that help them do so, such as open-mindedness, listening, empathy. They have intercultural competences that make them better understand others, be more inclusive, and become change makers against stereotyping, hate speeches, racism, and discrimination. UNESCO developed story circles, an accessible methodology, structured yet adaptable, that helps participants practice key aspects of intercultural competences.
We have always told stories as a way to connect. Circles, or talking circles, have a long tradition in many cultures as a way to engage with one another. Story circles help participants to connect deeply and meaningfully across differences, whether within a society or across borders, helping us find common humanity. They have been used all over the world in countless settings, such as in healthcare, with youth, in classrooms, in local communities, with refugees, and with Indigenous populations.
It takes 4 to 6 people to hold a story circle. Participating is simple. Just be yourself and share from your own experience. You'll find out that every person has a story to share and that we all have something to learn from others. This is what brings us together.
Ready to practice key skills in connecting with others? Want to help bridge divides? Join a story circle and experience our shared humanity in building a better world together.
I realized I was sharing the wrong screen, but hopefully everyone could see everything that was going on in the video. I'm going to share again. Screen 2. Right. So that was a very brief introduction of intercultural competencies, the importance of developing these skills, but also the method of story circles developed and tested by UNESCO across the globe. So this is the briefing part of the story circle session today. And I might start by just summarizing what happened in the video back then. For me, story circles are an approach to developing intercultural competencies through sharing and reflecting on personal experiences in a group setting. So it encapsulates, the sharing and reflection aspect that we'll be engaging with very shortly. In story circles, participants share life experiences, becoming active producers of knowledge. And this is a really important point because this is a truly learning opportunity for not just the participants, but also the facilitators in terms of deepening their own understanding of the meaning of sharing and reflection for everyone. And this is an active way to share and to learn together. So what story circles is not, it is not a group therapy. So I think it's really important for us to set this up in the briefing of any story circle session, because sometimes people can view this as group therapy, but actually this is an opportunity to focus on developing intercultural competencies, and that needs to be set early on. This is not a workshop-y style of delivery. This methodology is more of an experiential session. It's a chance for people to share stories and to reflect on their stories together. It is not a mandatory attendance occasion. So this occasion should not be mandatory in terms of participation. It should be based on a voluntary basis. And that is really important to keep in mind as well. In terms of why story circles should be used in education, there are several points here that I think are really important to emphasize. Story circles help participants to recognize similarities and differences with others. So normally when we communicate, we tend to focus on superficial similarities and we try to avoid differences because we fear conflict. But I think avoidance is not the best strategy. I think if we really want to understand other people and other ways of thinking and living and speaking, then we do need to touch on differences in a respectful and open-minded way as well. So both aspects are equally important in fostering understanding. Now, story circles can help people to facilitate connection on different levels, cognitive, socio-emotional, and behavioral levels. And research has found that this methodology is really powerful because it appeals to emotion. And that is the foundation of, remembering and understanding and, changing behavior on the long run. it can empower participants to own and enrich their experience, and this can be really powerful for students, because international students, for example, but also students of different backgrounds and experiences. They come to university perhaps for the first time, and they should be able to share and reflect on their experience in order to build on it in what comes next for them as well. And very importantly as well, this method is not too onerous in terms of training. It can be facilitated by staff and students who are skilled in working with people from diverse backgrounds and are able to implement the story circles model. So some training is recommended, but as long as the person has some experience working and facilitating communication across different cultures, that person can be a really good facilitator for the story circle. So, consider if you're facilitating a group of peer leaders, maybe this could be something that they want to implement in their own contexts, and academics as well in their own subjects. I'm handing over to Hilary to talk about the specific goals that we're working towards.
Thanks, Ha. And just to build on what you're saying there, we've actually run this story circle session with student leaders from the Culture Bridge Institute at the university. So they're like a student-led, I suppose, think tank on intercultural competences and all the rest. So we did run some sessions with a student partner, and they really loved it. They really engaged with it. So in the story circle itself, we usually go through these goals with students. So I guess they're pretty obvious, but I think they're really important to go through before engaging with each other. So definitely you would get buy-in from the group about how it's important to demonstrate respect, and that all ideas are welcomed, and we have to open up our minds and listen. And listen for understanding, really emphasize that point. That's perhaps one of the main outcomes, I suppose, for students, that they get an opportunity to practice doing that, to step into the shoes of somebody else, really. And yes, and we also explain, it's about, as Ha said, not just similarities, it's also exploring differences and helping them develop empathy, so increased understanding for others. And again, the last part, engaging in critical reflection, is super important. You have to have the debriefing part. That's really essential to the story circle. So if you're pressed for time, it is really important not to leave this part out, because that's where students get an opportunity to talk about, what they noticed about themselves in the story circle. And again, it also allows room for a person to develop relationships with people who are different to themselves, or people that they wouldn't normally engage with. So this is a lot. So yeah, it does take time, and that's why it's also important to emphasize, as Ha said, that experiential aspect. It's a lifelong journey, and we're always working on these aspects. And also we tell students that, while you're practicing it in the story circle, it's very focused. But then after the story circle, there's also room to develop these aspects, and they kind of become a bit more aware of them as they're communicating. So even participating allows that kind of openness, I suppose. Yep, happy to continue, Ha. So there is a set structure. So as Ha already said at the beginning, this is a methodology that was developed by Darla Deardoff, and she has she's created a big manual on it, but we're distilling it down to the bare bones of it, I suppose. But usually in a story circle, there's a briefing, which is about 20 minutes, and then there's two rounds. That's what you call them, rounds or story circles. So the first one is like getting to know you, or getting acquainted. I suppose you could change the name of that if that name didn't resonate with your students, because it sounds a little bit formal, getting acquainted. So you can always change the name of it. But usually students are given a prompt, and they get, say, 1 to 2 minutes to share their story. So they're in a little group. So usually it's about 4 to 5 students per group. and you give them the prompt as the facilitator, and then they get to sharing their stories. So that's just getting warmed up. And then the next one then is where they experience that intercultural aspect of it. So that's a bit longer, and the stories, they can go for 3 to 4 minutes. Some students might feel a little bit worried about that time limit. You know, it might seem like a long time. So, you know, they don't have to speak for 3 to 4 minutes, however long they feel comfortable, really. And it's important to let them know that as well. And yeah, that goes for 20 minutes. And then you have the flashback. So this is where students are asked to think back to the intercultural competences round and tell the participant who shared their story what they got out of it. Okay, you know, what did they remember? And this is really where students are practicing that listening for understanding, and, you know, active listening as well. And a lot of students have said they find that this part is really good because it helps them maintain attention. When they know they've got a flashback to do, it really helps them focus. And then after that, there's a reflection time or debriefing. So we usually call it reflection time, don't we? I don't think we call it debriefing that often, but yeah, and that lasts for up to 30 minutes. So that's pretty much the structure of it. What we might do is maybe role model. We also role model. So say this is the prompt that we're going to get you to do pretty shortly. We're coming up on 1 o'clock, so we'll get there. So let's see. Okay, so the first one is called Getting Acquainted Round. So this is a prompt, and I think most of us here can relate to this. It's food related. So what is your favorite food? What is the favorite food that you'd eat growing up? And how does it relate to your background? So for me, a favorite food for me growing up was probably apple tart or apple pie, as you might call it. And this for me, I'm originally from Ireland, is this food takes me back to my childhood in the rural area, so country area, the west of Ireland. And my mum would make us apple pie. And when she decided to make apple pie for us, she'd say, okay, run down the road, everyone, to her brother's or our uncle's farm. And yeah, she'd say, go and get apples from the orchard. And yeah, we'd bring them back home. And so we'd have fun shaking the trees and getting the apples and all the rest. And then we'd bring them back home, and she would make the apple pie for us. And oftentimes she'd teach us how to cook as well during that time. So yeah, that connects me to my mom, connects me to my growing up in the west of Ireland, and I guess to nature. So that's an example. Do you want to do the second one, or are you happy for me to do it? I don't mind either.
Yep, I can do the second one.
Yeah, cool.
Would you like to introduce it?
Yes, so the second one then is, and this, we probably would start off with an easier question. There are more challenging questions that you can do in the intercultural competences round, but usually we start off like with one like this, you know, if you're working with a group of students that are new to this. So what is one of the most positive interactions you've had with a person, or it could be persons, who's different from you? And what made it a positive experience for you?
Yep, so off the top of my head, and please excuse me if this story is far from perfect, but just off the top of my head, I think one of the most positive interactions I've got with a person who was culturally different from me was when I had my metacognitive discussion with my supervisors back in my PhD days about 10 years ago. When I first started, within my first 6 months of the PhD, I received very harsh comments from my supervisors. That wasn't the positive part. I think I made it positive because I requested a meeting that was about, how the supervision was going, because I was quite frustrated by the end of the first 6 months, and I sort of requested a meeting with both my supervisors, and they sat down with me and I explained my mind and what I expected from the candidature, and how supervision could work better for me. So I said something like, oh, I really appreciated all your feedback, because I can see how I could implement the feedback that you gave to help me to to become a better researcher, but I always felt very sad and disappointed at myself because of the way the feedback was being given. And so I sort of came out in that way. And my supervisors listened very attentively. And at the end of the day, they not really apologized, but they said that they didn't see it that way. And I was helping them to see things from my perspective as a PhD candidate. And after that meeting, our interactions significantly improved. They treated me on a more equal footing. They were more tactful in giving feedback, and I was happier, and I was more open to criticism when given in a more constructive way. So I guess that interaction was positive for me because I could speak my mind, because I was open to, giving my own feedback on the feedback process. And also because my supervisors were very open-minded and attentive listeners themselves as well.
You're a star. Thanks for being so brave there, because I really did put you on the spot. So I apologize for that. We hadn't arranged to do it that way. So thank you. I appreciate that.
The story circles is all about that, right? It's not about preparing a perfect story. It's about, what sticks with us and what we remember about that interaction that sticks with us.
Yeah. So maybe
making meaning. Yeah.
Making meaning. Yeah. And maybe we should practice doing a flashback. So I wonder, would anybody here perhaps share maybe a quick flashback based off Has story, and maybe it might be about 10 seconds. I wonder who might be brave enough to to do one. Just feel free to unmute and have a go. What did you get out of Has story? What resonated with you?
I can contribute one.
Thanks, Steve.
So as Ha was talking about her interaction with her supervisors, it really got me thinking about a story. And I guess that's how story circles work. I guess they prompt people's own stories, right? So I remember working with an academic, and she was from South Africa, and that probably wasn't necessarily the reason why what happened, but she said she was giving feedback to one of the students I was working with in a one-to-one context, and the feedback had red pen right through paragraphs and whole sections crossed out, and no, this is not what we discussed. And the student was beside herself. And I said, look, I know the supervisor, I'll go and I'll have a chat to her. And I talked to her about this because it's just echoing your own experience, Ha. And she said, I had no idea. That's how I was brought up. That's what my supervisors did with me. And I found it directive and I found it clear. And so we had to have a chat about what that meant in a cultural sense, because there was a few cultural things going on, and just in a positivist and developmental feedback sense. But it really got me thinking. So thanks, Ha. That was so interesting.
Wonderful. Thanks, Steve. Ha, do you want to say anything?
I think Hilary, if you have anything to say, that will sort of demonstrate how we sort of take turns to reflect on the same story before we move on to the second story.
Yeah, so the person receiving that flashback doesn't really interact. They just kind of sit there and they listen to what everybody else is saying. So if I was to say something, I might say, for me, what I took from your story was you're in a very challenging situation, which was confronting on many levels. And you took action, and you made some positive moves that helped improve your situation. That's what I got from your story.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, I really appreciated your feedback. In 15 seconds or less, you could convey so much. And this is what we would like you to do in your breakout rooms as well. So after the second round, the intercultural competencies round, we would like you to go in circles, and you may start with a person whose name comes first in the alphabet, and so on. And just take 10 seconds or so, right, to give your reflection on one thing that sticks with you from the story, like Steve and Hilary did. And then we do that for the first story before we move on to the second story. So all the stories should be told before the flashback. And in the flashback round, we sort of look at the first story, and then everyone goes around to give their flashback. And yes, we do have the Padlet here for you to refer to. Actually, we've put together this guide here. There are two guides, actually. One guide for facilitators. It includes some background information about the story circles as well. But I would like you to open the participants guide, because these are the steps that you'll be doing in your breakout rooms. So at any point you don't know what next, what is next, you can refer to this guide.
And Alice has asked a great question. Do you provide any thinking time for participants before they have to start a story circle? That's a great question. Yeah, we usually do that. So once the students register for the session, we would share that handout that Ha just showed you, and we would have the prompt there as well for them. So that we usually send that the day before. So we were a bit naughty today. We didn't send it to you, but we thought you could handle it. We know you can, because you're also used to, doing things on the spot as teachers and all the rest. So yeah, but usually with students we wouldn't we have? Yeah.
Yeah, in the guide for facilitators, we recommend, having 1 or 2 minutes of just silent thinking in the breakout room, so everyone can jot down a few quick, keywords, to share about their story, and that will jog their memory of that story. But if you have an opportunity to contact your participants first, doing that would have a great benefit as well. Yeah. So Hilary, would you like to take the next breakout?
Definitely. Yeah. So I think what we'll do now is, if you're happy with it, we'll put you into a breakout room. Does anyone have any questions before we start with this next section?
Can you just remind us what you want us to do in the breakout room? Sorry.
Oh, yes. So basically in the breakout rooms, we're going to run a story circle using the handout that Ha showed you. And there's the 2 prompts. So we have what is your favorite food when you're growing up?
Right.
And then the next one was, what is your experience of somebody who is, culturally different to you, and what made it a positive experience for you? So they're the 2 questions, and it'll be a flashback after that, after the second story circle. It's all on the Padlet anyway, so if you get stuck, don't worry, you just have a quick look at it. And as Ha said, this is just experiential. We're just trying this out, so it's okay if it doesn't go smoothly. In fact, maybe that's a good thing, because we can come back with that reflection and see how we could problem solve it. So that's totally fine as well. So yeah,
we'll be broadcasting the prompts for you in the breakout rooms as well. We won't be in the breakout rooms, we'll be in the main room, but we'll be broadcasting each prompt in turn.
Yes, so there's quite a bit to this, so we're not going to come into the breakout room. We're going to allow you to have that conversation on your own and share your stories with each other. So this is your time to learn from each other, basically, and then we'll come back. And I suppose at the back of your mind when you're doing it as well, maybe you could be thinking, oh, if I was to do this in my own context, what would that be like as well? So it's kind of having that meta approach to it too while you're in there. You don't have to do that, but if you feel like it, you're more than welcome to. Okay, so I think we might as well get going. So we'll, as Ha said, we'll broadcast some prompts to you. So we'll keep track of the time, and they'll probably all come back at 1:36, so about half an hour or so. Yeah. Okay.
And Steve, if you could help us set up the breakout rooms. We want 4 to 5 people in a breakout room.
Okay, they're done. Do you want me to open them now?
Yes, please.
Sure. I'll stop recording as well.
Yeah, this isn't recorded. Yeah.
They're open. Over to you.
That's fine. Thanks, Steve. Welcome back, everyone, and I hope you had fun in your breakout rooms. And hopefully we didn't interrupt you too much. Hopefully you were wrapping up as you were brought back into this main room. So this is the debriefing or reflective section of the session today, and this is essential to story circles because there's no well, learning is limited if there's no chance to reflect on what happened. So this is the reflective part of it. So a couple of notes before I post the link to the Padlet again, and I will leave it up to you to use the unmute button or to use the Padlet to reflect on your breakout room session. But this is important because it enables participants to reflect on the small group experience. It enables us facilitators to observe what has been achieved by each small group, as well as establishing that intercultural learning and development is a lifelong process. This is just the beginning of intercultural learning, and the beauty of intercultural learning is that it never stops. It spirals up like that, hopefully up, not down. And every time we do this, we learn something about ourselves and other people that we haven't thought of before. So hopefully that's been your experience as well. So these are Dear Dorf's recommended questions for the debriefing, and I'm speaking to you as facilitators for your own sessions, but we've picked just 4 questions, and we would love for you to spend some time reflecting. Oh, thanks, Hilary. I just repeated the link to our Padlet in the chat, and I would love for you to share your thoughts on 1 or 2 or all of the questions in the Padlet. If you don't want to, talk about other things, you can just pick 1 or 2 things to focus on. Or if you feel like it, you can answer all of those questions put on the Padlet. Or if people want to verbally share their experience based on those questions, you're very welcome to as well.
There isn't any right or wrong answer here, so just go for whatever comes into your mind, really. I mean, this is just having a go.
I think in our breakout room, the ones that in that first part about the food experience was just the power of food to evoke memory and connection with family or parents or siblings, or events that happen to you when you're growing up. They say smell is the strongest memory trigger, and we were sharing stories, and I was thinking to myself, I could smell my father's spaghetti bolognese that he made, and it's such a powerful, impactful thing. Yeah, that's what sort of was a theme that occurred to me, how impactful it was in our life.
Yeah, that's a great reflection, Steve. And I think food, along with a physical place, maybe asking about participants' favorite places that they've visited or want to visit, could be another thing that can trigger some memory. And I think food, music, places, right, Hilary? Those are
for sure,
the recommended topics that you can choose from. There are more topics that you can choose from the facilitator's guide, the first column there. And please feel free to tailor the topic to your own taste. Do other people want to share your reflection verbally? You can just unmute yourself and speak to us.
Really see, it's nice to see that everyone's in that reflective mode. You can almost feel it through Zoom. I can really get a sense of that. And there's some really interesting comments coming through in the second column, in the column about learning about yourself. I guess it's interesting that people are feeling a sense of connection, I think. So see that one there, a reminder that my own experience is unique, and that others' experiences evokes resonance in all of us, definitely. And that's something that comes up a lot through story circles, that people say things like, I don't feel as alone. Sometimes people say, I didn't think I'd make a connection to people as quickly as I did. So so developing that confidence and being able to make a connection. What do you notice, Ha?
I noticed that vulnerability has a lot of power in bringing people back together. I think most of the time we try to appear professional, perfect in our everyday conduct. And actually, when it comes to connecting to students or to other people for that matter, I think being vulnerable and being confident that, you know, this is my own experience, I'm taking ownership of it, I'm sharing it, I'm being a human being. I think there's a lot of power in there in terms of, fostering that relationship with other people. Knowing that I don't have to be right at all times, I don't have to be perfect. Actually, I think the most annoying person would be a perfect person.
Yeah, and I love that somebody said how it's good practice being asked to listen without commenting or interrupting. Definitely having, you know, that's active listening in its essence, really, I suppose, taking in what another person's saying without having your own assumptions, and that really is a skill. So we often emphasize to students, you know, if it's something you find really challenging, that's totally fine, because that means you're working on it. It's a skill, and it's something you'll probably practice over, you know, even outside of the story circle. Yeah, and I love that somebody's picked up on. Yeah, go ahead. Who's speaking? Yeah, go ahead.
Siri.
Hi,
Siri Barrett Leonard. Hi, Hilary.
Hi.
One of the things that I was reflecting on is that across all of our stories, we talked about things that we had learned from other people, and it's interesting how, you know, we're all drawn in many ways to these roles of supporting others and teaching others. But it was our discussions were very much about what we've learned from others. You know, sometimes when we've thought that we were going into situations in which we might be the ones who were teaching others, it's actually what we've come away with from what they've said or how they've interacted with us that's been so important in our learning.
Wonderful. Oh, that was a great thing to recognize. Thanks for sharing that with us. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so you were focused on similarities. So that probably was a bit of a bonding experience. I know somebody noted that in the feedback. Well done.
Yeah, and my favorite sentence to use in different situations, and that might annoy some people, but I mean it. I mean it in a good way. Is I'm here to learn. Like, much as I want to influence and, you know, impact and reach, I'm basically here to learn. And so that your reflection, Siri, reflects a lot on my experience as well. Thank you. There's a question in the chat, Hilary.
Great. Oh, great. Yeah.
Have we found it different to do a story circle online and face-to-face?
Well, I suppose we can't really comment on that yet because we haven't had the opportunity to do a face-to-face one. So yeah, we've just done online ones so far. This partly came out of a grant that we were working on, that we had the good fortune, all sponsored us to do some research, and our focus was really on the digital context. So that's why we probably have focused more on that. But I think it would be wonderful to do it face to face as well. And
yeah, we haven't had the opportunity to do face to face yet, but actually Deardorff offers a lot of comments and tips for face to face settings. Like, you know, be sure that your physical setting is a quiet room, big enough to accommodate everyone in a comfortable way. And it's ideal not to have a table in that circle, in the middle of the circle, just chairs circling around, yeah, and people just actually forming a circle. That's her recommendation. But of course, you know, you need to speak to your physical setting. It might be impossible to do that within a lecture theatre, for example. So creativity is recommended.
we have a great question. Do you think that story circles could be presented in blended mode? well, I suppose as How was saying, yeah, we can we can apply our creativity, anything's possible, I suppose. I suppose the main thing is that everybody is included. So that would be probably the key aim there, that, you know, that everyone has an equal opportunity to participate and that feels, you know, comfortable as well. So that, I think it would be possible, but it would require probably more planning. But it's probably is possible, I think. Yeah.
Like the sound setting on the laptop, and maybe the group sharing, one small group sharing the same laptop instead of different people sort of logging in through different accounts, because it can be hard in terms of managing the sounds that comes through. Yeah, I haven't thought about this in a blended mode yet, but yeah, we will definitely take that on board. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, and because of, I guess, the nature of this session, we wanted to ask the question, you know, what might you do as a result of this experience? And really pleased to see that some of you are keen to try out this methodology. So that's really exciting. That's what we're really hoping, you know, for other people, other advisors and all of the rest to have a go at doing this as well. We hope you have the confidence to do it. And yeah.
I'm coming to the pack that we've developed for students and facilitators, and we're very happy to share that pack because, as Hilary said, this work came on the back of an AALL grant, and we're very grateful to AALL for granting us the money to make this possible. But I want to address the challenge that one of you shared in the second column on the Padlet there. It is very hard to come up with a coherent story, and that might be true for a lot of students as well. They might not know how to tell a coherent story, and so maybe coherence is not what we aim for, but there's a lot of suggestions in the facilitators guide. One of the boxes there is around, you know, how, what box is it? Personal story suggestions. So box 3.2 in the facilitators guide, we've put together some questions that might be answered in, you know, in a simple way to facilitate the storytelling process. They are around who, what, where, when, right? What impact, what feelings and actions and results or issues that came out of the event. So hopefully that addresses that issue.
I noticed another comment, and I think it's a good one to explore as well, how it can be confronting at times to share memories with people you don't know. And that is very true, I think. Yeah, so how to handle that, I suppose in the expectation setting at the beginning, you could emphasize like only share what you feel comfortable to share. There's no onus on you to share, and if you're feeling uncomfortable, you can pass as well. You don't have to do it, sort of thing. So it's even voluntary. Once you get into the story circle, you can pass if you want and maybe have a go the next time. There's like absolutely no onus on someone to participate if they feel it's causing them anxiety or bringing up emotions that they were unprepared for. I mean, they may not know it will make them emotional until they're in the moment. So yeah, so that's something definitely that you can go through with students at the beginning.
Definitely. And I want to add the note about confidentiality. I think it's really important to emphasize that, just to let people know how to handle the stories shared with them in breakout rooms, but also to let everyone know that this is a supportive, confidential environment, and it is safe to share their stories. Yeah. But I suppose another thing, if you're doing it online, is to encourage everyone to turn their webcams on, unless they have a very compelling reason not to. Shall I go back to the slides, Hilary, to introduce our pack for everyone who may wish to implement this method? All right, just bear with me 1 second. Here it is. So we've been through the debriefing, which is an essential part of this activity. because it ensures that people can take away something meaningful for themselves and try it out in their own practice as well. These are the key references that we referred to during our talk, and also in building our references, our resources, we rely heavily on these people. This is a sum up, a wrap up slide of the session. So it's all about inclusivity, creating a sense of community where everyone feels safe to share their stories. It's also about empowering participants to develop a cognitive, socio-emotional and behavioral connection to the university environment and each other as well. Committing to the story circle goals enables the creation of a comfortable environment in which intercultural competencies can be developed. And then the structure of a session is around briefing, and then breakout rooms or small groups. And there are 2 rounds here with a flashbacks segment at the end. And we bring everyone back to the main group with a debriefing or reflective section. Now, as I said, Hilary and I, with the Come to a Bridge Institute as well, have been working hard to put together this pack. It gives guides, but also lesson plans and PowerPoint templates that you can download and just use for your own session, as well as blurbs and titles, suggestions, and other things here. So if you would like to get in touch with us and ask for a copy, please feel free to email me. Hilary is sadly leaving. Sorry, this is your story, Hilary. And I
thanks, Sarah. Yes, I am very sadly leaving. Yes, I'm leaving the university, but it's for a good reason, really. So I'm going back to Ireland after 11 years in Australia. So yeah, that's why I have put down her email address. Yeah, so thanks, Sarah, for that. Really appreciate it.
I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
It's okay.
But as well as the resource pack, we've had a publication out, and it has been published on the AALL Journal website as well. So check it out if you're interested to find out more about the research foundation behind these activities. And finally, I would like to acknowledge that our paper and resource pack have been developed as a result of a research and resource development grant from AALL. So we want to acknowledge the role of our association, our wonderful association, in enabling all this work. We also acknowledge our former manager, Guido Ernst, and our current manager, Trent Hennessy, for championing diversity and inclusion in the workplace and in our teaching practices as well. So thank you.
And a big thank you to Steve as well for inviting us along today and for being our champion as well, for championing us. So we really appreciate that too.
Very, very happy to. I loved this session the first time. And I said to you when I was back in the main room after the breakout room, same thing happened again this time. I sort of got more out of it than I expected to get. And it was, as all good sessions are, pleasantly surprising. So I loved it. I love the way you guys do it. You obviously care about it, which I think is any presenter gives that to their audience. They're passing across their feeling for what they're doing, and it just adds to the depth and robust nature of what's going on. So I just want to lead a very public thank you to Ha and Hilary for conducting that session for us. Another fantastic CIS Connect Inspire Share session delivered by AALL, sponsored by AALL, which again, as they said, must be acknowledged for, you know, Rebecca and Siri before her sort of really putting weight behind what we do here is really good, and it's valuable. In the chat, I've just posted a Qualtrics link to a literally, I think it's a 2-question survey. Just, you know, how did you find today's session and what ideas you might have for future sessions? If you'd like to do that for us, it just does feed into future sessions. Our next one is going to be facilitated by Alice Lee. Alice, did you want to say anything in preview, or do you want to keep it a surprise?
Yeah, the idea for the next session came out of the first session, student voices. So someone had mentioned since students, disabled students or students with special needs or different student cohorts might need resources to be designed and created a bit differently or a bit more thoughtfully. So the next session is titled Designing Accessible Online Learning Resources. What does this mean? What is involved and how do you do it? So we're hoping to make it quite practical, and it's going to be led by the team I'm on for online resource maintenance and development at ACU.
Looking forward to that, and we'll post out the details of that in the next few weeks. Okay, well, look, it's 1:58. If you haven't had your lunch, it's probably time to go and do that. Final thank you to our wonderful two presenters. We're so sorry to be losing you, Hilary, but Ireland gets a lovely daughter back, and Ha remains with us. So.
Thanks, everyone. I really enjoyed delivering this session and learning from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.